Welcome, brothers and sisters.
Welcome to you and your new tan, Garrett. Are you trying to look more presidential? This is the new governing body update where Garrett will finally introduce the new cult leaders to his followers. Not before babbling about some conventions first, of course. Garrett, it's my birthday. Couldn't you at least give me today off?
More than 4,700 delegates traveled from 21 countries to attend these two conventions. There was a combined peak attendance of over 17,000 and 123 were baptized. The special convention touched the hearts of many, including a delegate named Jonathan.
Wow, such cool. See, this is why they can't get rid of conventions, because conventions are the strongest proof of the only good thing of being a witness, the feeling that you have friends all over the world. If they got rid of conventions, that would be a giant hit to how the average Jehovah's Witness perceives his religion, and to one of the main sources of income that the leaders have. Besides using natural disasters to beg for donations that won't go towards helping victims of natural disasters, that is.
In late September and early October, hurricanes Helene and Milton devastated the southeastern United States. The two storms caused devastating floods and landslides. Sadly, 3 publishers were killed. Over 11,000 of our brothers were displaced. The storms damaged or destroyed 17 kingdom halls and more than 2,500 of our brothers' homes. We continue to pray for all of our brothers who are affected by these disasters. And we are grateful for the many volunteers who are supporting disaster relief. Of course, we also appreciate the generous donations that allow us to care for the needs of our brothers who are facing these terrible situations.
There is no relief other than them sending some people to fix their own kingdom halls and maybe some Jehovah's Witness houses. The aid you get as a Jehovah's Witness victim of a natural disaster comes from your congregation. You will never, ever get money from this religion to help you out.
On September 27, 2024, authorities in Eritrea raided a private home where a peaceful meeting of Jehovah's Witnesses was being held. Initially, the police arrested 24 of our brothers and sisters, including 2 minor children. Later, the children were released. This raid occurred nearly 30 years after the president of Eritrea revoked the citizenship of Jehovah's Witnesses in 1994. This decree is still in force and prevents the majority of Jehovah's Witnesses from leading a normal life.
This is why persecution like this doesn't work. Garrett isn't going to fill you in on the details, but Eritrea made Jehovah's Witnesses illegal after the leadership decreed that no Jehovah's Witness could participate in their independence. The government should have behaved more like the government in Norway, which removed their religious status and stopped giving them free money or tax exemptions to the religion in a move that only affected the leaderships and not the average Jehovah's Witnesses. Since the leadership got affected, they started doing changes to their religion to get their religious status back. Well, if only the average Jehovah's Witness got affected, they would have never changed a thing. Let's just skip to the new cult leaders.
What helped you to come to know Jehovah so that you wanted to serve him, Brother J.D.?
Well, I was raised in the truth. Dad was baptized in the 1940s, and he served faithfully until he passed away. And Mom was baptized in the 1950s. They loved Jehovah and his organization. So their love for Jehovah helped my sister and me form a relationship with Jehovah as well. As I grew up and I learned the truth just made sense. But what really convinced me that it was the best way of living was the love amongst Jehovah's people.
Yeah, especially when it comes to how they pretend this fellowship people didn't exist until a few months ago. That was super loving. In reality, the love you get in the Jehovah's Witnesses, or any other cult for that matter, is nothing but toxic positivity, and it's completely conditional to how committed you are to the cult. Jacob's story is far more interesting, though.
My parents were raised around the truth. However, my Mother was inactive, and as I was growing up, my father was also not a witness. Although we never really associated with the congregation, my mother did teach us basic Bible truths. I knew God's name was Jehovah. I knew that I should only pray to Him, and I also knew that the earth would be converted into a paradise. Also, when I would visit my paternal grandmother once or twice a year, who was a very faithful witness, I really felt drawn to Jehovah by her because of her words and her beautiful Christian qualities. I wanted to know who Jehovah really was.
This is an extremely interesting origin story for one of the new leaders of this cult. According to him, his mom was what we in the ex-Jehovah's Witness sphere like to refer to as POMI, physically out, mentally in. That's used to talk about someone who, even though has stopped being an active Jehovah's Witness by going to the meetings and preaching, they have not deconstructed their belief system and fully remained mentally indoctrinated. The three things that he listed here are the three basic Jehovah's Witness beliefs: that a God name is Jehovah, even though that name was only invented 1,000 years after Jesus died; that you should only worship Jehovah because this is the least Christ-focused Christian religion; and that the earth will be transformed into an earthly paradise, even though that's nowhere on the Bible. You might be noticing a pattern here. In order to be considered a Jehovah's Witness, you need to base your beliefs on things that are objectively wrong. After all, if you don't mind the very basics of Jehovah's Witnesses being wrong, you'll be more likely to buy into their increasingly convoluted and contradictory belief system.
Soon after my study started, I realized that this was the truth that I was looking for. My mother was reactivated, and a month later I was approved to be an unbaptized publisher. Now I'm happy to say that my whole immediate family is in the truth, and they continue to be an excellent example of faith for me.
This reminded me of a weird quirk in this cult. The more indoctrinated your immediate family is, the better it looks on you. I think it's because at some level, all cult members know that all the people whom they are associating with should, ideally, be indoctrinated too. If your close family isn't indoctrinated, you either have to renounce to them and avoid them completely, or associate with them knowing that you'll be looked down upon.
What have been some of your assignments over the years, and how have you benefited from them?
Well, I was assigned to the cleaning department when I came to Bethel at Wallkill, and it was a great crew. We enjoyed working with each other. And working on different teams and on rotating schedules helped me see the need to be adaptable to get work done. About 2.5 years later, I was transferred to the office where I worked with staffing matters and medical matters, and I was even able to help missionaries with medical care that they needed. Later, Damaris and I got married and we were transferred to Brooklyn, where I also continued to work with medical matters. We served in Brooklyn until 2005 when we left Bethel to help take care of parents. We both pioneered, and I served on the Hospital Liaison Committee and on the Regional Building Committee. We came back to Bethel 8 years later for a 2-week assignment on the Warwick construction project. And then in 2021, I was assigned to the Hospital Information Department, and in 2022, we were transferred to Warwick to work with hospital information services.
Look, this is boring, but this is very valuable for Jehovah's Witnesses, since it's his pedigree. But to sum it up, he worked in construction departments and in health departments, or I should say anti-health departments. As you heard, he worked in the Hospital Liaison Committee, which basically supervises all Jehovah's Witnesses who are in the hospital and might need a blood transfusion to ensure nobody gives them a blood transfusion. Weird how he decided to highlight this instead of his experience in real estate, but I'm almost happy he didn't, because if he had talked about his experience in real estate, we'd have a whole bunch of XJWs being like, oh, this changes everything and proves that this religion is focusing more on real estate in the near future. Which is like saying Raymond France moved from the writing department to the governing body because they were going to focus more on print and books, when that's what they did already. That's literally backwards. Back when France was in Bethel, the main way this cult made money was by writing books. So it made sense that the writers doing a good job, like France, were noticed and put up for the job of leading the cult. It's pretty much like getting a promotion, right? Now that the main way this cult makes money is with real estate, it makes sense that Jody was noticed for his work on real estate and put up for the job.
We've served in different parts of the world and enjoyed many different privileges. But in all of these assignments, what we've really learned is to just be content to do our best with what Jehovah allows us to do each day, and to not get too worried about what we can't control. Another thing that we've learned is that it's never the place that makes an assignment special, but it's the people really that you get to serve with.
Oh yeah, the classic thing that Jesus always said, go and make disciples, remembering that it's all about the friends you make along the way. This is here because this is how you need to think of your work as a Jehovah's Witness. You can do so little of what the Bible tells you to do while you are inside this religion. Your cult makes it harder and harder to convert people, and it keeps getting the Armageddon dates wrong. That's why, as a Jehovah's Witness, you need to be taught to be content with whatever you can do and with the friends you make along the way, because that's pretty much the only way to derive any kind of satisfaction from this useless and unfulfilling job that you won't get paid for.
Is there a scriptural thought that has strengthened you as you begin this new assignment?
I think for me, the example of Joshua helps and what Jehovah told him when he received a new assignment. Joshua had always been a courageous servant of Jehovah for decades. He walked through the Red Sea. He led the Israelites in battle against the Amalekites. He was a spy, and he helped Moses for years in very difficult situations. Yet at Joshua 1:9, interesting what Jehovah tells him. He tells him, have I not commanded you? Be courageous and strong.
Jody here is showing what he actually believes in deep down. When asked for a Bible verse, he brings up the tale of how Jehovah was with Joshua. And this is extremely telling. Think about it. Moses is almost the quintessential Israelite leader and one of the very few people in the Bible that God gave authority over his people. And Joshua first worked with Moses and then took his place when Moses died. Jody thinks this is pretty much what's happening to him. He thinks that Jehovah is giving his people to him, Jody, and the rest of the governing body. So when older governing body members die, they can fully take over and become not like Joshua, but like Moses himself. Except, unlike Moses, who will be resurrected on Paradise Earth, Jody will never die and will instead be beamed up to heaven when his body dies to rule over Paradise Earth, Moses included. This is why I believe the people in the governing body are almost likely fully indoctrinated. Believing this shit isn't just more likely, but far more sinister than if they knew this was a cult and all made up. They don't think they're grifters. They think they are going to rule among rulers next to the King of Kings. And that makes them far scarier.
The reality is, with Gideon's own strength, he couldn't do much. So Jehovah is basically telling Gideon, you just bring what you have to offer, and I'll bring the rest. To be honest, the thought of serving in this capacity was scary for me and my wife. But we just want to try to imitate Gideon. Just do our best and let Jehovah make up the difference.
Jacob's story at least comes across as somewhat more humble for someone who thinks God chose him specifically to lead his people. That being said, putting them next to the oldest governing body member really shows how young they are, which will likely be somewhat alarming for some Jehovah's Witnesses who believe that anointed people have to be contemporaries of people who lived to see the events of 1914, which is what this cult teaches. Remember, the youngest contemporary today of someone who was a teenager in 1914 and lived to be 95 would be someone born around 1980, making them around 44 years old today in 2024. And that's only if you give them as much leeway as possible. The new guys are right on the edge of what this cult teaches about their leaders and how they're chosen. Could this be a hint that the generation teaching will be fully restructured to break away from the most important year in Jehovah's Witness theology, 1914?
We are so happy to have you on the governing body. And we wish you Jehovah's blessing in your new assignment. And we continue to pray for all of you. We love you all very much.
This is the official introduction to the two new leaders of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I gotta say, they look as sinister yet as boring as the rest of the governing body. To me, they all look like they're kinda dead inside and only looking for one thing, for this corporation to keep existing. That's all they care about. As long as this corporation keeps existing, they can keep believing that they're above Moses and that they're chosen by God to rule not just on earth, but in heaven next to Jesus Christ himself. Now, if you excuse me, I need to go celebrate my birthday by eating some cake while I tried not to think about me being broke, not having achieved anything, and being a year closer to death.